So obviously some of the things I want to say, it doesn't really apply anymore. But first of all, before you even think about going back, you need to get permission from the tower authorities, either the clergy or the school or whoever is overall in charge of your tower. Find out what their rules are, so you're not convening anything there, and then follow up afterwards and say this is what we've done. So hopefully you can get some good publicity out of it. I noticed a couple of people here too are a very long way from their towers. So again, that doesn't really apply to you. But and some towers, it's for just the local ringers only. They're not admitting visitors as such. So that's another issue, whether you can have visitors. The next thing you really need to do before you even think about going through the motions of actually ringing is to check thoroughly all the equipment in the tower. Go up and make sure the ropes are still in good condition, that the mice haven't chewed through them.
Thank you, David.
Or the bats. Oh, we have Eve as well now. Another.
We've had several new come on, and just right after you started talking, Bruce. I think 3 or 4 maybe.
It took a while.
So you may want to start again.
Well, I was just saying that a lot of people online already are already ringing again, so it kind of makes my talk here a little bit redundant. But I don't think that's happening all over. So where are we? Check your ropes. Make sure the clappers freely swing. I was talking to Ed Futcher from Raleigh, where they've been ringing for a couple of weeks now. Their clappers are actually sticking a little bit, although they did free up after a while, but it tended to make some of the bells quite odd struck. Make sure all the stays are tight. And if you didn't, the bolts around the wheels and all that kind of stuff are all tight, because sometimes the wood swells and it affects the bolts, and when it contracts and so forth, so they can come loose. Check your pulley wheels, and if you're so inclined, make sure you, or if you need to, oil the bearings and the other bushes, if that's something that your bells require. A lot of them don't, because they've been sitting there for the best part of 18 months, some of them unrung, so some of that grease needs to be freed up and cleaned up and everything. And then the next thing is you need to contact all your ringers. See what they themselves want to do. A lot of the ringers may want to come back. Some of them may still be very hesitant to come back. Some of them may not be vaccinated yet, fully vaccinated. And some of them may just have found all those other interesting activities that you used to do on a practice night or a Sunday are more attractive now and just want to continue to do that. Estimates are that between 10 to 15% of ringers, particularly in England, will not be returning to ringing, which is kind of sad. And the Central Council is talking about doing a campaign similar to the Ringing Remembers, when we tried to recruit 1,400 replacements for those lost in the First World War. So they're thinking of doing in 2022 another similar campaign when they got no idea of how many ringers are needed. One of the other things that it's possible in English towers to do, which is not possible over here, is to form clusters. So if you know that there's 2 or 3 ringers down the road in the next village or town, or even within a town, and you're short at one tower, or both towers are short or whatever, then get together so you have one good band and alternate. But we really can't do that here in North America, although I guess Houston does it all, and what we do here in Philly, we do that already anyway, with just one band that rings up both towers here in Philly. And I know the Quebec people don't have a separate bibliothèque group, so you're all well aware of that kind of stuff. And we experienced here in Philly on Wednesday that we started by ringing up very slowly, and everybody managed to get their bell up happily. And we did it fairly well in Peel, and nobody seemed to have forgotten how to ring. I don't know if anybody else that started ringing has experienced anything, but most of our people were confident with what they were doing, and it came back very easily. But some people, particularly some of those learners that just began before the epidemic closed us all down, they may be kind of reticent, and it may be necessary for you to have someone stand in front of them and just steady them and guide them and give them confidence to get their bell up. That's assuming, of course, they can get their bell up. If they can't do that, once you hand the rope over to them, same kind of thing, make sure someone's standing by so that they don't have any fears and accidents. Some people have talked about people losing muscle strength and all the rest of it. So there are some interesting videos out there. And if you go to the chat, I've typed in 2 website links that you might want to go to. It has lots and lots of information, more than one.
They're
don't
not
see
showing
that.
up in the chat. You have to put them in after we're connected for us to see them.
Only the people that were in when you typed them in would see them. You got to type them in again or copy paste them.
Okay, well, my assistant will do that fairly quickly, I hope.
Good looking assistant.
How's that now?
How's that?
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
So there's some videos, and if you look through some of those, the Central Council last week, in conjunction with last week or the week before, did a series of daily programs, and all those videos are now available on YouTube. And there's some exercises you can follow along and build up muscle strength, particularly in your arms and so forth. When Eileen and I woke up the next morning after Wednesday night's practice, we didn't have any unusual muscle aches in muscles we hadn't been using for 18 months. So, but there again, Philly bells are only 400 weight, and you're not pulling a heavy, lumpy bell around like you would in Chicago or even.
Hey.
Well, I hear rumors about those bells, so enough said about that. And you may even have people come into the tower who have never touched a bell because they've got attracted to Ringing Room or some of these other virtual sites, and found ringing is something for them. So now you have to make a decision, when do I start teaching? If you even are a teacher, that is. Do you want face-to-face? All of us on Wednesday wore masks because St. Martin's is a small tower. we had the fan on at the top of the stairs, the door wide open, a little window with a fan in it blowing air out, and we had the air conditioning fan on. We chose not to, we chose that an hour would be plenty of time for us to get together. We had decided that we would ring for 10 minutes, go down for some fresh air, come back and ring for another 10 minutes and repeat that pattern over the course of the hour. The first 2 sessions worked quite well like that. And then at the end of the 3rd session of ringing, there was a bit of a mutiny and people didn't want to go back down again and face it. So we actually rang for 15 minutes and then rang the bells down and that was it. So all sorts of considerations you need to consider. Eddie Futcher, when they started thinking about going back and Raleigh, because Raleigh again is another small little tower, not much distancing between the ropes. He had done some CO2 tests, which we didn't do here because we didn't have the equipment, but he must have been able to get the equipment somehow. And he found, I think he said, a 3% increase in the CO2 levels after about 10 minutes of ringing, which he decided wasn't very significant, which is what prompted us to do it in sessions. Again, we all chose to wear masks, and everybody we insisted had to be fully vaccinated. That's 2 or 1 Johnson plus the 2 weeks waiting period. So I think if everybody's in agreement, you're probably pretty safe, especially what's coming out of the research these days. Michael might be able to tell us differently, but
no, I mean, like I'd say that's approximately accurate. If you want me to talk about it, you know, I can, but I don't want to interrupt your talk.
that's fine. No,
Bruce, your ventilation plan sounded very good, because good ventilation in the ringing area seems to be a very good thing indeed, and something that is worth striving for.
yeah. And then Sunday we were planning to go back to St. Martin's for the first Sunday service ringing. And again, we're going to do half an hour service ringing, but we're going to do it again, 10 or 12 minutes of ringing, and take a break, and then come back and finish off the session. And that's
So you're not ringing at St. Mark's these days?
Well, the problem with St. Mark's is we don't have enough ringers who want to go to St. Mark's at the moment.
Right.
And in consultation with the clergy, the St. Martin's clergy, when I approached him a couple of weeks ago, once Philly had said things were going to open up a little bit, he said fine. The St. Mark's vicar said we shouldn't think about anything before Memorial Day. Although circumstances have changed with what the city and the state have come out with. And the city and the state here are not eye to eye. So the city is much than the state regulations. So yesterday was the first day Philadelphians could run around without masks on outdoors, for example. And we still can't go into quite the same as the rest of the surrounding area, or Jersey, come to that. And also you may have found that a lot of your ringers have been doing handbell ringing. And the other thing that comes along with both the virtual ringing and the handbell ringing, people have been able to make a lot more progress than they would necessarily in a tower. because one of the key aspects of ringing in the tower is, to making good progress is good bell handling. And of course, with the virtual and the handbells, you don't really need to learn the bell handling aspect of ringing. So it makes everything a lot easier. So how do you deal with something ringing surprise major now that left your tower barely able to ring rounds or call changes? Get them to not be disappointed, dismayed, or whatever those words are, and give up and leave on you. So it's a very fine balancing act, how you approach the ringing, and something you shouldn't take lightly. We just did, after we got the bells up, started off with some simple call changes so that everybody got a feel of the bells. And then we did some plain hunt. And then we actually tried plain course of plain bob doubles, because we were only 6, and a plain course of granta doubles. And then we tried some plain hunt on 6. That gave everybody in the tower an opportunity to do something at their own level. And then we tried, just before we rang the bells down, to ring a plain course of Stedman. And as usual, Stedman won. And people, before they come back, they might think they remember all these blue lines, but you need to remind them and prepare them for the kind of things you might be ringing, especially if they've been doing some virtual ringing. Or they haven't been doing virtual ringing. None of us in Philly actually did any quarantine virtual ringing. We tried it a couple of times on Ringing Room. A lot of people didn't come out in favor of it, so we just had regular Zoom meetings instead of our practices. We met once a week and socialized.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the stopping for 10 minutes and then going back for 10 minutes. What was the idea then, that the ringing chamber would clear?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and
But would it really clear though in 10 minutes?
well, we don't know. We had no way of experimenting with it, so that was what some advice that we have been given. So we stuck to it.
Mhm.
Well, you had the exhaust fan on and stuff.
So
Mhm.
movement around, and then each time, some people stuck with the same rope, other people moved around on the ropes because of the method of ringing. So we all hand sanitized before we touched the rope. But I was told that the virus doesn't live very long on ropes and is not very transmittable that way.
Yeah, the main route of transmission is pretty clearly aerosols and
Aerosol.
droplets by breathing it, less by fomites, which is touching it. And then, I mean, if you touch it and then touch your nose a lot, it could potentially be a problem. But as long as you're kind of conscious about that, fomites and surface contact is not as much of an issue. Yeah.
Mhm. I think when we just rang 10 minutes and left, we didn't want to ring longer than 10 minutes. So,
Like I said, it's really for the band to get together and decide what works best for them.
yeah, and you're vaccinated, so yeah.
Yeah, if everybody in the tower is vaccinated, at that point, I would say from a virus perspective, as long as everybody in the band is vaccinated, your risk is extremely low. So however you're comfortable with dealing with the extremely low risks from there, I think is up to the band. But I would say the current consensus, and this is reflected in the updated CDC guidelines, is pretty much as long as you're vaccinated, the way things stand right now, things are looking pretty positive and very low risk as long as you're vaccinated.
That's our concern in Quebec City, in that we have a 4-month wait between the 2 vaccinations. So I'm not getting my second vaccination until the 5th of July, and Donna is in September, I think.
Mhm.
No, in August for us.
Yeah,
That's a long
I
time.
know
Yeah.
it's very different wherever you go. And the English system was why they vaccinated everybody once and then went back for the second dose 12 weeks later. So, but last Monday was the first time that people were allowed to ring any long lengths. And so last Monday, I think groups actually met and rang there were 3 peals rung.
Mm.
So again, you need to decide whether you want to ring anything long length like a quarter peal or even a peal. I know Washington's been ringing quarter peals.
Mm.
It's
Got lots of room.
really up to individuals.
Yeah, if you want an additional point of reference, Washington University in St. Louis just changed their guidelines, and they no longer require masks indoors in semi-private settings as long as everybody has been vaccinated. So what that means is you still have to have your mask on in the hallways and in the bathrooms, but when you're in like your office or your lab bench setting, which is shared by 5 or 6 people, they no longer require you to have your mask on, as long as it is not a clinical setting where you're seeing patients. So things are definitely looking up in terms of how people are opening up and where the current scientific guidance is. That said, WashU distributed their vaccines extremely widely. We know for a fact that everybody in our lab is vaccinated, and pretty much everybody in the labs around us are also vaccinated. So that is partially the risk is partially a reflection of that.
What I was saying, a lot of you have been holding virtual practices, and you might well want to continue having in-tower practices and virtual tower practices. So you might end up having 2 practices in a week rather than the usual one you used to do. Again, that's something for you to decide amongst yourselves as a band and find out whether people want to do that. Linda, I saw a hand go up, and then it went down. So do you have a question?
No, I just put my thumbs up saying, yeah, I agree. Those of us that are from towers, we want everybody to keep ringing virtually. I'm ruining the day that may come when my favorite towers stop ringing virtually. So
I think the hope and expectation is that you'll be able to find ringing virtually somewhere. Those of you on this gathering do a lot of virtual ringing, I know, and you might know more than I do about continuing it past returning to the tower ringing. The other thing, particularly with us with Sunday service ringing, the parishioners have not heard the bells obviously for 15 months, and it's a good opportunity not only for them to hear the sound, but also to remind them that it's human beings up there making the sound. So put it out, or make sure the clergy put it in the weekly newsletter or in their sermons that it's real people up there doing this kind of thing. And use it as a recruitment tool, and remind them that it takes more than 8 people to ring 8 bells, because some people don't always come every week, so you need that. So it's a good opportunity to get people back into the tower and to get new people into the tower. Again, there's some advice on recruitment on these things that I see there's a question, did and take 2 readings for a longer time? No, I don't know, Alan, the answer to that. You'd have to write to him. I know they did it several times. It wasn't just one reading.
Yes, they did it several times and they have a fan in the door and it didn't change very much. And so, you know, and the door is open and it's a ground floor ring.
Okay, good. I didn't know the particulars, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
I do, on that CO2 thing, the CO2 buildup is not going to, I can't believe it's going to be to levels that are going to really harm anybody, but it would be an indicator that other stuff can be building up, and that's the real problem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not the CO2, it's the.
That's an indicator of lack of air movement, essentially.
It's to test really how the air changes over the course of the time, rather than measuring CO2 for the sake of measuring CO2.
Are you sure you don't need anything else in that keyset?
So it may
Okay.
that for a very long time, ringers, that you're ringing again, and perhaps they'd like to come back to the tower. Their circumstances may have changed. Arlene and I have been doing quite a lot of work for the Central Council and the Volunteer and Leadership Committee on lapsed ringers. We all know of ringers that drop out for various reasons. Commonly, they get jobs or have families or so on and so forth. And it might be an opportunity to remind them that maybe ringing is something that suits them again and get them back into the tower. The average age is creeping up there. I can tell by the people on this call that we don't have too many young people following us along, other than Michael there and Anna and Kit. So we need to replace ourselves along the way. Use a good tool. You might find that the usual practice night that you had before doesn't suit everybody anymore. So maybe you need to get together and come to a consensus whether Wednesday nights is still good. People may have taken up bridge or some other sport. I was always amazed when the Central Council tried to get bell ringing listed as a sport, so they could claim lottery money, really, for various projects. And the Ministry of Sport denied bell ringing being a sport. But when they looked into what is a sport, bridge happened to be one of them. So how exercise in the bridge, getting up and walking around the table or something, I don't know, looking over somebody else's pile of cards becomes a sport, I don't know, but ringing isn't. So, but anyway, I digress. You might find that everybody will prefer Thursday nights now. So think about changing practice. Just because it says in the annual report Wednesday nights, make it Thursdays if that's better for all of you. And just remember to change it on the website and give once you change your practice night. And you obviously, if you get new ringers, new learners, then you have to make a serious decision as to how and when you're going to train them. Particularly if they're a younger person, they quite likely haven't been vaccinated yet. Particularly, what is it, under 12-year-olds? Do you put them off until such time as it's much safer to do it? Because obviously teaching requires face-to-face, close face-to-face contact, even bodily contact in some instances, touching hands and so forth, keep that down to a minimum, but something you really need to consider, even if you've got people who were on the threshold of putting their strokes together and so forth before the pandemic. When do you start inviting them back together again? Something you really need to consider, and whether, particularly with younger people, just make sure you got all the parental controls and guidance and permissions we even think about taking on the task. So as I've said, that the two really good links are on the chat, and I would encourage you to go and look at them. The one whole set is produced by ART, the Association of Ringing Teachers. There's loads and loads of material there that you've got links to, not only just related to the pandemic, but all sorts of other things that you could be doing in your practices, and doing other services, ringing, and how to prepare and so forth. And then the Central Council is also very aware of all of this and has been putting out regular things on the website, Central Council website. And if you go to their website, there's lots and lots of guidance. If you're not quite sure what to look for up in the tower, you can go to the Central Council website and look under the stewardship and management work group, and there's lots of information there about how to work safely up in the bells and what to look for and so forth.
Bruce, are all the towers in the United States, are they open, or what's the status of the North American Guild?
I did go through them at the beginning, so I guess you joined a little late. Some of the ones I knew, Raleigh's ringing, Washington's ringing, Hendersonville is ringing. We've just started ringing. Hendersonville is ringing. Houston's about to ring, although I've been doing a little bit of Sunday ringing. Charleston's been doing some ringing at Grace. I think Boston's been doing some ringing.
We've been doing some ringing, Rochester.
Right.
I plan to tomorrow. Tomorrow's our big day.
Yes.
We're not allowed to cross the border though, last I heard.
Not
Canadian border.
It's just been extended till the end of June, but that's about the 12th or 13th extension, so probably won't happen until the end of the summer.
Until more people are vaccinated up north.
Is that extension people coming north or people going south or both?
Going
Both
south
ways.
is no problem. I have a friend who went into the States, no problem, but coming back, they got a $6,000 fine because they didn't have their most recent test. And then they went to McDonald's, downloaded it, and got the fine waived. But coming into Canada, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yep. No, going back to the UK, you still have to go through an 8-day isolation period in a hotel at your cost, which is about $1,700 per person. and get tested twice while you're in that hotel.
You can't do it in your own private home in Kent?
Well, yes, we could, but
Tourists could not.
tourists could not. So, so that's no fun.
Yeah.
Well, Quebec has just started issuing vaccination certificates. So I got my official one today.
Yeah, down here, we just got a little, almost smaller than 3x5 card that hand wrote the dates of your vaccination on it. And they talk about not allowing you to do this or that without having been vaccinated. But how do you prove that you have or haven't?
You don't.
Really easy to copy one of those things.
New York State has an official vaccination on their app, but I'm not sure how many other states recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can guarantee you Texas doesn't have that.
Or Missouri.
So anyway, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I was just going to open it up. Comments, questions, other experiences, particularly those of you who have started.
I'd make a quick comment about almost everybody that actually went back to the tower had been doing things on Zoom, which was pretty much working up to 8 bells. So I was very pleasantly surprised to see people ringing like plain Bob triples, plain Bob major. It wasn't the greatest striking, and particularly one individual pretty consistently wasn't getting his bell up all the way every time, but it was a very pleasant surprise. And one of our less experienced ringers, when she came back, she was really surprised that, it really is like getting back on the bicycle once you're, reasonably solid in terms of handling. So going back into the tower for us was a very, very pleasant experience. We're sort of fortunate in having a ground floor ring with a big door right there. So I've got fans that point up to try to blow air up through the little holes in the top, and fans to try to exchange air with the immediate outside and stuff like that. And then there was always sanitizer available, a very good sanitizer available. And we started out with masks, but as soon as everybody was vaccinated and good words came out about that, we've sort of dropped away from the masks. So it was, I think, very much appreciated that we were back in the tower. And we got, I don't know how many comments from, not that the attendees, that the services were all that large in numbers because of restrictions there, but people were very, very happy to hear the bells again.
Yep. So,
I've been on the hook for recording and live casting Sunday services, and that's worked out quite well. Our parish has gone back to live church, but with masks and distancing. But there are a lot of people, who, especially those very old, who will not come back until things are truly safer, and they're paying attention to the church services and the live streaming. I've heard good reports about that, so that's gone very well. We were recording only and doing replays on Facebook and YouTube, but I think it was about 6-8 weeks ago we went to live services.
Easter.
Easter was live for us. And if somebody, I'll tell you very briefly how we accomplished that. It's an outfit called Boxcast. You have to pay them a monthly fee. We signed up for a year of it, and they send, for an additional one-time fee, a device that plugs into Ethernet for the internet. It needs power, and there's, I had to buy a nice HDMI cable from the camera. And of course, the church had to buy a video camera because we didn't have anything that was nearly good enough. But it works as advertised, and I discovered a new a new thing to do while not ringing, which is doing all this video stuff. So that was interesting, and and also when 9:30 rolls around, we start ringing because our bells have a chime as well, and so we're able to ring changes without using the ropes. Our simulator has programmed Bob Royal, Bob Caters, and some version of call changes.
Grandson.
And Grancer, well, Grancer Caters, I guess. Yeah, anyway, and Grancer. So we've not lost a lot of steam despite the pandemic in our congregation, which is interesting.
Lost a lot of steam among the ringers. Some we know nobody has been doing any kind of virtual ringing, and some of them we haven't seen in 15 months. In fact, there's only one we have seen in 15 months. So tomorrow is going to be telling.
Sure will. Michael, do you have anything to add from the virus perspective?
Not specifically, but if anybody does have any questions they want to ask a virologist, feel free.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I would only add what I had said before, which is that, you know, things could certainly get worse, but right now they're certainly looking better in a way that is extraordinarily positive. So, you know, get vaccinated as soon as you can. And the risk for those who are vaccinated at present seems to be extraordinarily low.
I'd have a question perhaps for you. My first vaccine was AstraZeneca. When I get my second one, would you suggest going to Pfizer or sticking with AstraZeneca?
So the data on that is not really clear or great so far. I would need to do a little looking into that. I know that's a question a lot of people have been asking, and the true answer is we really don't know at the moment. Given that the issue with AstraZeneca around blood clots is an extraordinarily rare event, to the point where I wasn't extremely concerned about it. That said, if Canada has enough Pfizer or Moderna available that they would offer it to you, that would probably be okay, but that's something I would like to do a little bit more research on, and I think people are presently doing research on right now, and hopefully there would be some results that would come out reasonably soon, but I can look into that.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll even have a choice, but if there was a
my
choice.
suspicion is that you probably won't have a choice.
Eve, you have a question.
How do you feel about ringing with anti-vaxxers, people who haven't had their vaccine?
I would be, so it depends what additional safety precautions they themselves are willing to undertake. And I would say it also depends on what the current levels of community spread are. If there's no local spike in cases, then it would probably be okay as long as they're willing to observe certain precautions, including masks. If there's a high, if the cases in your area are starting to tick up, I think that would be a bit worrisome. I don't know how socially to handle that, quite frankly. But I would say that if you have people in your community who are not vaccinated and insist that they are not going to be vaccinated, I think you in turn may need to insist on some minor level of additional precautions. How you want to handle that socially, I think, is a difficult question that we don't really want to. That's difficult to think about because we don't want to be exclusionary, but at the same time, there are certain safety considerations that need to be taken into account.
I'm inclined to be exclusionary. I think they should get tested with the nasal thing every week until they get vaccinated.
Ouch.
Well, I know in the UK that the government has made it available that you can just get a test to do at home. You just order it from the pharmacy. And I know that certain people in certain jobs and so forth, it's required of them to do it on a regular once a week type basis. So, but again, I think socially, if you have someone in your band, it's really up to the rest of the band to decide among the majority how they feel about it.
With the microchips embedded in the vaccine, will I be able to consult mobile on the same time I'm ringing?
Oh yeah, no, it'll just ring for you, actually. All you have to do is just hold your hand up to the bell and it'll just flip over. Oops, I don't think I was supposed to talk about that.
So, well, thank you everybody for listening. Up with me for the last.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks indeed.
Thank you very much. Good seeing everybody.
Yeah, food for thought.